Okay, should we start? This is so weird.
Okay.
The main shot is so weird because there's like this big gap here.
It's okay.
Okay,
Welcome back to the Tuxedo Time podcast.
that's not the intro. Welcome back to another episode of Tuxedo Time, where we
We're
wear tuxedos
and
and it is time.
Podcast
edition.
Cabin Mountain Edition.
Mountain edition. I have a proposal.
Yes.
I think that the title, the intro should change to, because right now we say where we wear tuxedos and it is time, but I think we should change it to where we wear tuxedos and it's a time. Like we're having a time. We're having a laugh.
I don't know if I
we're
agree with
having a
that
time.
because I think it's supposed to be the awkward like.
And it is time.
It's like tuxedo time. It's like we wear tuxedo. That's why we have tuxedo in there. And then time is like, and it is time.
I guess, but I feel like if we say and it's a time, it's like we're having a time. Like that's.
I guess whatever you want to do.
Well, you guys let us know in the comments. Should it say and it is time or and it's a time? Like you're here having a time with us. Do you know what having a time means?
That's a Newfoundland thing.
Okay, having a time means you're having a wicked time. Like you're having a laugh. Define it.
You did it perfectly.
We're having a time. We're having a good time.
Speaking of this, where are we having this time?
Okay, so this time with this special edition of you should be sitting here. The heater's blasting me.
All right. But the light is more flattering on your face.
Yeah, your mic is hidden, my mic's hidden. We're in the Catskills at an Airbnb by a company called, this isn't sponsored, but a company called Den owns this property, and they make really modern cabins. And if you guys can tell, a lot of the furniture, even just in this little teeny tiny shot, is 100% our style. Pendleton blanket, beautiful comfy neutral couch, plywood walls, really into it. So
You've been vibing off all of this for
All
the
of it.
entire trip.
it's tickling my fancy. So we're kind of hanging out here. We thought we kind of do like a socially distant kind of getaway. It's funny because this episode is going up before next week's episode where we talk about getting vaccinated and kind of how we're going to be easing into travel. But we wanted to put this episode up first because we wanted to address the comments and the feedback we got from you guys, which was amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to comment and tell us what you like about this podcast, but also for those of you who listen, who actually came to YouTube just to interact, we really appreciate your time in doing that. So thank you. And we'll talk a bit more about that after. So this episode is going up before the next one. You'll see the next one. I still have a burnt hand. We recorded that on the same night as the other one, but.
And this trip will be on multiple YouTube videos.
Yes, coming
in
up.
the near future. So
On our main channel.
yeah, so consider this like a little
Spoiler.
preview into the future.
Yeah, we thought that, well, there's no, this is completely off grid. There's no internet or anything. So we thought that we could potentially record a podcast and just use these little wireless Go mics. So quality might be a little bit different, but.
I feel so spoiled now though because we have the Rodecaster podcast setup that we've been using for the last, I don't know, however many episodes. Mm-hmm. But the mics are really nice. Everything just works. You just set the levels once and forget it. Mm-hmm. And it's just always set up. But now I feel like we're going back to recording via external mics. This isn't as ghetto as it was when we were doing it because we were using video shotgun mics just as actual microphones.
Right.
But right now we're using the video. What is it?
It's the Rode Wireless Go 2s.
Wireless Go 2s, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're it's a little bit more high tech than the hardwired mics that we were using before going into the Zoom, and then having to sync everything up in post. But at least now we're mobile. We can have them go directly into the camera, so you don't have to do a sync step in post.
For sure.
There's no.
No, exactly. And we're just using one camera today. So a little bit different, but you know what? This is a little trial. We thought it'd be fun to try it and do it. Going back to the feedback that you gave us in the comments on the last podcast episode, they were super helpful. You guys are awesome and so supportive of this podcast. And a lot of people just kind of wanted to hear us talk about whatever. And, some people wanted to hear photo video stuff, but other people just kind of wanted to hear stories and hear us talk about stuff. And they liked that they were felt like they were getting to know us through the podcast. But I think the stories seem to be the...
I feel like we've told all of our stories.
Oh, well, we have a story to tell about this trip.
I feel like we have no stories left.
We have a story. We have two stories from this trip. Spoiler alert, we almost smoked this cabin out a few minutes ago. But we'll talk about that in another podcast because this trip isn't finished yet. And so there could be more stories. We could have told yesterday's story, but then we would have missed this story of the smoking of the thing.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll talk about that.
We're going to save all that for after the actual videos come out.
Yeah, in a couple of weeks. So after reading all your feedback, we have decided to add a new segment we're calling Open Mic. So what that is basically going to be is we're going to encourage you guys to send us an audio message through the Anchor app. You don't need to it's not sponsored. You don't need to sign up. I think you could just send us a message. Keep it super short, like 10 seconds. Tell us something funny, tell us a quick story, or just share some thoughts. And we will periodically play them in a segment on podcasts.
You need to have a new jingle.
I know.
Programmed into the Rodecaster.
Yeah. So open mic. So yeah, send us your audio messages on the Anchor app.
Is there a link that we're going to put in the...
We'll put a link in the show notes and in the episode description if you're following on YouTube.
Yeah. I was just thinking we could just tell the story of this place today. Because realistically, only a subset of our audience listens to this podcast.
That's true.
And then anybody who's dedicated enough to listen to this podcast is probably going to still watch the video, right?
Yeah, and they're not really going to get the full story probably through the video because we didn't really film it. So we could talk about that today.
Okay.
What do you want to do that instead?
Since we're here.
Bait and switch, man. We're switching up the topic.
Bait and switch. Okay. All right.
All right. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. So we decided to rent this cabin. A couple of weeks ago, we saw it advertised on the Den Instagram account. And this cabin and the A-frame, there's two cabins. It's this main cabin, and then there's an A-frame just down the path. They're in the similar style of the cabin that we want to build. Spoiler alert, secret for those of you listening to the podcast, Chris and I actually bought a piece of land for a cabin project. We haven't talked about it anywhere yet.
No.
So only you guys know, so shh, don't tell anybody. So we came here almost as R&D. We wanted to stay in both cabins to get a feel for how things were finished, what the layout was like, especially the A-frame, because we want to build a small A-frame first. So we did that.
Yeah, it's helpful to we can plan out and build something, but unless you're in a space, it's such a different experience being in a space and actually seeing, okay, this square footage translates into this usability, and okay, this layout translates into this usability.
Yeah.
And seeing what you would change and what you would keep, I think is very useful rather than just building something and hoping, which is a lot of times that's what we do.
Yeah.
We'll plan rooms out at home and we're just okay, I hope it works.
And just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I hope this layout works.
Yeah.
And for the most time it does, but I feel if you have the ability to try something out, okay, there definitely needs to be these changes, or this is perfect.
Right. And that's the thing about the A-frame cabin, because I'd never really stayed in one of those before.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure how tight it was, if the ceiling was really low. And because of the pandemic, we haven't been traveling the last year, so we haven't been getting to experience new and different places. And a lot of times throughout the years, we try to stay in cool hotels or Airbnbs, or when we go to cities, we'll go into showrooms and stuff to get ideas, to see and touch and feel
places that are inspiring.
That are inspiring, exactly, to kind of get inspired for a project. So we've been kind of deprived of that the last year. So this was a great way for us to kind of dip our toes and travel, because we didn't have to really see a lot of people, and the people who we did see on this trip, thankfully, were vaccinated, and so are we. So it made it kind of a little bit easier. So why don't you take it away? So
you, I think you were really needing a vacation.
Yeah, I just needed to get out of the house.
Yeah,
away from the house.
Working from home, you're literally in the house all day.
Yes.
All night. All day, all night. Repeat for however many days? 454
days.
Yeah, basically, with the exception of going to the grocery store or getting takeout.
Yeah.
Or
or going for a walk.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think you were going more stir crazy. For me, my routine has been pretty much the same.
Yeah.
I've been lucky enough to be working in a job that just continues rain or shine.
Right.
Pandemic or not. So while we changed some things at work, we still had to kind of keep going, and it ramped down and ramped back up with the pandemic. But for all intents and purposes, I still maintain the same social interactions, just with masks on at work.
Right. Yeah.
So for me, it didn't seem a lot different. But I guess for you, we haven't been, minus the vacations that we used to take. But outside of that, everything was the same for me. But I think that also getting out of the house and renting a place like this, that really kind of tickles your design side of your brain.
Yeah.
That was what we were trying to get out of this.
Well, we wanted to fill up all of our cups, because we wanted to fill up the design side of the cup, where we got to stay in a place like this, but we also got to fill up the helicopter side because we got to fly here.
Yes. And that's we've been sort of Becky and I have, as much as we are the same person, we've kind of grown. We talked about the festoons.
Yeah, the
we've
festoons.
grown into the same festoon of a person.
Yeah.
We have different interests, and for me, I love flying. She could take it or leave it.
I like flying now, like when it's pleasant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like flying when I like it, but I hate it when I hate it.
But when it's bumpy, it's not that fun.
Yeah, and then for her equivalent of my love for flying is like love for interior design and spaces. Mm-hmm. And so to be able to, we've kind of found that those are kind of like two of our main pillars in our YouTube channel. So we've been able to kind of combine those with travel to destinations, but use the helicopter. So it's kind of like both of us are getting our fix out of it, right?
Yeah. It's kind of like the best case scenario having a joint YouTube channel when you have slightly different interests. I mean, like, I like flying when it's pleasant, and you like interior design, but like...
When it's pleasant.
When it's pleasant, but yeah, exactly. So it's nice to be able to combine them, especially into like a video. So we do have a couple of videos coming. So we rented this place, and we were hoping that we were going to be able to land here, but after...
Well, that was the whole... Like when we found... I think you found the listing, right?
I did, yeah.
Because it was featured on Dwell.
It's featured on Dwell, and then I was following them on Instagram, and then they were like, hey, we're putting this on Airbnb so you can rent it. And I was like, done, let's go.
Yeah, so you went on Airbnb, and then I was looking at the listing, and I'm like, oh, and the way it's set up is there's a larger main cabin kind of tucked away within the trees.
Which is what we're in now.
Which is what we're in now. And then they've got a more open area, I guess like parking, and probably what they use for construction area.
Yeah.
And then they've got a little A-frame on the edge of that cleared space. Mm-hmm. So I was looking at it, and I was like, it looks, based on like the images that you could only kind of see from inside the A-frame looking out. I was like, but I'm pretty sure you could land a helicopter there based on just those limited images. So we messaged the owners on Airbnb and said, hey, odd request, but can we land a helicopter here? Or we'd love to kind of rent your cabins for the weekend or whatever. Mm-hmm. And they said, oh, like we've never had that request before. Like, what does that entail? So we kind of went back and forth a little bit, and they ended up kind of saying, well, it sounds really cool, and we actually love, that'd be cool, like photo op kind of thing. It would make great images, etc. But we want to make sure that like from a liability standpoint, this is our like business, this is our like bread and butter, so we don't want to like do anything that could jeopardize that. So if you could get a indemnification agreement drafted up that's executable, which I guess just means like legally signable by both parties or whatever, mm-hmm. Then yeah, we'd be down. So I said, okay, this sounds like something that my lawyer will have to do. So I went to my lawyer and said, hey, this is what we're doing. They want a contract basically indemnifying them of any liability and releasing them from any liability basically. And he said, yeah, not a problem. I can do it. And so I had that drafted up. It cost almost as much as the Airbnb to get drafted up.
Yeah.
And then I sent it to them and didn't hear back for a while. And that was in the week before we were supposed to travel. And I get a message from one of the owners and says, hey, so hate to be the bearer of bad news, but we took it to our lawyer, and they said even with the indemnification agreement, they brought up the fact that we are in an HOA, like a homeowners association, which are notoriously known for being very sticklers about various things, as to not kind of like piss off the neighbors in the neighborhood. But either way, they said, our lawyer brought up the fact that like if we pissed our neighbors off, it could impede further development plans we have. So I think this is like, an ongoing business for them, obviously, yeah. And they want to build more probably structures, I would imagine.
Yeah. I think that they're kind of using this as an opportunity to like build their projects here and then have people come rent them, test them, and then hopefully convert that to a sale later on down the road.
I guess for them, they kind of weighed the risks and benefits, and they were like, you know what, it would probably be okay, but all it takes is one neighbor complaining about us, and then our business gets like shut down, which is totally reasonable. And yeah. I mean, we talked about this before about how like I was super disappointed because like we went the whole way and rented the place under the guise that we'd be able to land the helicopter right in front of the.
Well, when he said yes, we had like the entire video concept planned out, and like we had this whole like, not like a short film, but this whole video plan that we were super pumped to make.
Right.
And then it was like 2 days before, and they were like, yeah, we're not like, we can't do it.
It was the week before we were left. He's like, yeah, I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Which kind of put us in a tailspin because we're like, okay, wait, hold on. We got to regroup now. Are we just going to drive?
Yeah.
Are we going to still
fly to an airport, rent a car?
Yeah,
but
like
the airport's 45 minutes away.
Right. Yeah. And there's some smaller airfields around, but they don't have FBOs. FBOs, which are like the fixed base operators that basically you can like have like rental cars and amenities prearranged. So they have to look out for themselves.
Yeah. Oh, it makes sense.
And I 100% get that.
And we also like, I think sometimes people say yes to us a lot with a helicopter. And so when you get a no, like it feels weird, but we also have to respect the fact that like this is a weird and awkward request and there's a lot of unknowns, and it's not like for us, it's like, yeah, we can land a helicopter pretty much wherever we want, provided that the land is open enough and whatever.
Yep.
And so we're used to off airport landings, but for somebody who isn't really into helicopters, it doesn't know a lot about helicopters, and like landing on a land is like, is that allowed? Like, that's really scary.
Or like
what happens
if they have no concept for how safe or how dangerous this is.
Exactly, which I respect 100%. Yeah.
And because I remember I was going back and forth with him, and he was like, "Well, like this is I estimate it's about this big." And he's like, "I don't want you to like have to test your helicopter skills on this property kind of thing." And I was like, "Oh, fair enough, yeah." But it's not so much like, yeah, there's a gradient of risk when you're doing off-airport landings. But with that said, if you meet a minimum amount of, like, if you have a certain amount of land, like, it's not really any different than just nailing a landing at an airport on like a little helipad, right?
I think like looking at the land here, you have way more space than even when you landed at New York. Whatever.
Oh, landing at downtown Manhattan was way more technically challenging than this would have been.
It was like probably a quarter of the size.
Yeah, and exactly. And you've got like a full chain link fence on one side.
Yeah, and other helicopters on the other side.
Other helicopters on the other side, and you've got
wind.
And a crosswind coming. Yeah. Downtown Manhattan was way more difficult than what this would have been.
But again, like you go back and it's just like.
But you don't have they don't have that frame of reference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I respect that. So anyway, we didn't get permission to land, which was totally fine. They're in their right to say no.
Yeah.
So Chris does what Chris does. I was like, cool. There's an airport 45 minutes. It's got a FBO. We can probably hook a ride to the rental car company, which is like 5 minutes down the street. We'll get a car. We'll drive in. We'll have the freedom to like roam around and whatever. And he was like, no, I already on the internet looked up a dude who lives down the street. I cold called him. Who does that in 2021? You cold called somebody's number you found on the internet to ask if you could land your helicopter on their lawn.
Yeah, so I was like, oh well.
I would never.
Well, I know you would.
I would never.
You the thought of not only the thought of calling somebody with your level of social anxiety, but also like the worry, like I would never want to bother people because I hate it when people call me.
Yeah, well, it's just inconvenient. Like I don't know. I just like maybe I just respect people's time, and I don't want to like inconvenience somebody out, but I also don't want to feel like I owe somebody something. So it's just easier just to go to the airport and rent
You know
a car.
what? So here's the secret, is that anybody who would say yes and think that landing a helicopter on their property was cool, would be cool with it, anybody who'd be cool with that
gets a ride, free ride.
Would probably also be pretty stoked about getting a helicopter ride as like a compensation.
So that's actually what ended up happening.
Yeah. So I went on Google Maps like you would. Just looked around the aerial photos.
No, not like you would.
I was like, okay.
Nobody does that.
Here's
you.
And so for the video,
we just go on, just like everybody does. You just go on Google Maps.
You look for a open place. You use the scale. If I can find a place that's 50 by 100, I know it's definitely amenable to landing a helicopter.
By the way, this is not the first time that he's done this. He's cold called people to land other times, and we got permission to land. He's cold called people to buy their property.
To buy an island.
Hey, do you have this? You own this island. Can I buy it?
And they said yes, but Becky kiboshed it.
It was 4 hours away.
We could have had an island project.
What am I supposed to do? Guys, I'm going to the cabin. Hang on. I'm going to drive 4 hours, blow up me dinghy, throw it out the fucking trunk, and row to the place?
Yes.
You wanted an island to build a helicopter?
Yes.
You wanted an island to build a cabin that was only accessible by helicopter. How are you getting building materials in?
Sling loaded in. Or
put it. Or, you know what he wanted to do?
Or blow your dinghy.
He's like, we're just gonna go like land in the Home Depot parking lot and sling load it over the fucking town. Load up the dinghy. You gotta rent a barge.
Look, I already found the farm.
Anyway, I kiboshed that shit.
There's a farm on the shore side that would allow me to have the building supplies dropped off. I just sling it literally like 50 feet to the island. It would have been awesome. Anyway, it wouldn't have been as usable.
It was as far away as this place is.
Yeah. Because there's not many islands. Believe it or not, there's not many islands around Buffalo, New York.
No, there's not. In fact, finding a waterfront property at all is impossible.
Unless you want to pay like $1 million.
Yeah.
Which we do not.
No.
Anyway, so
fucking cheap.
So I was going on the aerial views, and found it was actually it was a business. It was a driving range / beer garden that had a little pond sort of off behind the beer garden area.
You were like, ooh, an aquascape lifestyle.
I know. I was like, okay, I could land here. It was like 100 by, it was plenty of space, and I could swing my tail rotor out over the water to minimize any like, because if there's a way to like put the tail rotor over water, I usually do, just so that like nobody can therefore walk into it. That's what the number one ground accident is, walking into a spinning tail rotor. But then, so I called up. I looked on the public land surveys, found the name of one of the owners, and just called them. Just looked their name up, looked their number up in the white pages, called them, and said, "Hey, odd request, but my wife and I are coming into town for a weekend. We rented an Airbnb, but we just need a place to park a small helicopter. I noticed on the aerial photos that you own this property here, perfect landing space next to this pond. Would you be open to that?" And he said, "Okay, well, I guess let me ask my brother. He's a co-owner, so but I don't see it probably. If you think it's enough space, sure." I was like, "Yes." So she asked him, and he like popped on the phone, and we talked about it a bit, and he was like, "Yeah, okay." And I was like, he was like, "Oh, are you staying at like the resort? Because he owns a resort here." And I was like, "Oh no, sorry, we're staying down at, an Airbnb or whatever." And he was like, "Oh, okay, well, whatever. You still just like, come spend some money at the resort or whatever." I was like, "Okay, cool." And I was like, "Wait a second, like, is this like the beer garden? Is this like right next to the bar?" He's like, "Yeah, like there are people here like that, patron this place." So I was like,
"Yeah."
He's like, "You're definitely gonna be able to see the helicopter from where people hang out." And he's like, "You're definitely gonna have people like going down and kind of like, oh, what's going on here?" I was like, picturing like people just like drinking, and then their inhibitions are lowered, and then they fuck with the helicopter. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll have to find another spot, because I don't know if like that's." And he's like, "Well, I live like a couple doors down, and I have even a bigger spot in my backyard." And I'm like, "Oh, really?" He's like, "Yeah." And it's funny because on ForeFlight they use older aerial photos, so he had actually recently excavated out his backyard, and so it was a lot bigger than what the aerial photo showed. So he was like, "Oh yeah, here's where I live." And I looked on the newer Google Map photos actually, and they showed. I was like, "Oh yeah, that's perfect." And he's like, "Yeah, you can land here, and it's on my private backyard, away from no one can see it from anywhere." So I was like, "All right, let's do it." So flew in, and before we flew in though, we were basically following the weather for like a week and a half, for like a week basically.
Yeah.
It was the week before we made these plans, probably about 4 days before the trip. So a better part of a week we were following the weather. And it was like for 2 weeks before that, it was like, like bright sunny days?
It was like forecasting to be sunny and like 30
degrees Celsius
for the whole weekend. And then like,
which is like 90 Fahrenheit.
It was hot, and I was like, cool. I had all my stuff packed. I was like, got shorts, the lightest clothes I could find. And then like a few days before, I like looked at the forecast, and it was like rain and 7 Celsius, which is like 40, and rain and 17 Celsius, which is something, I don't know, 60-ish, 65-ish. And so I was like, oh shit. And then when we looked at the weather closer, like the night before we left, it was like, oh, we have to leave at 6 a.m.
Well, it was, so the day before, I was like kind of like periodically checking the weather the day before, and it was like, okay, rain is going to start in Buffalo at, I think it was saying at like 10 a.m. And then as the rain, it's going to be light drizzle. It's going to start light drizzle. The visibility is going to be still VFR, which is perfectly okay to fly in. But as the day goes on, the visibility is going to drop to marginal VFR. It's going to be a marginal VFR for the whole day. With weather minimums, helicopters generally are flying a lot lower to the ground. So it's very few helicopter pilots are instrument rated. And even the helicopter pilots who are instrument rated generally aren't using it very often.
Right.
So long story short, even though we're following the weather, we want to make sure I'm okay flying in marginal VFR, just because like we can land anytime we want. It's a little bit less like with fixed wing. It's like if you're a VFR pilot fixed wing, you're limited to airports. So you're very like, okay, once I take off, I have to hit an airport before. So if I get into Harry, if the weather deteriorates further, I don't have the option of landing in that field right there and waiting weather out.
Right.
It's like once you make that go decision, you're all in.
Yeah. So like you have to be a little bit more cautious with fixed wing.
Like I think my uncle Bob flies. He's a VFR fixed wing pilot. He's not instrument rated. I'm pretty sure like he only flies VFR. Like marginal VFR he doesn't mess with.
I wouldn't, man, if I was in a fixed wing.
Yeah.
Like okay, so literally the other day when we were flying, so we scooted out before the weather hit, and we were basically, the weather was chasing us. Like,
right. So it was, we were flying west to east, and the system was coming in from west to east. So if you looked at the weather forecast for our departure from Buffalo and compared it to our destination, it's like Buffalo, it was initially forecasting rain hitting starting at 10 a.m. and then visibility sort of deteriorating a little bit later. Whereas in our destination, it was like the rain's going to hit in the afternoon, and then the visibility is never going to deteriorate. So we had this like window in the beginning. I was like, okay, if we leave in the morning, we should be able to get out before the system hits. But it kind of like, as we were like checking and the day went on and into the night, we were checking in the evening, and it was like, oh, it's going to hit earlier. And now the 10 a.m. rain is now going to hit at sunrise.
yeah.
And the VFR is going to switch to marginal VFR at around like 8 a.m. So theoretically, we got to be up at sunrise to the airport and in the air before 8 a.m. Just to kind of like give us the most buffer before the weather closes in.
Right.
So that was the scenario.
Yeah, so we got out, and it was raining kind of while we were there, but it wasn't bad. Like, we could still see. It was still like VFR. But you could see, like, as we were going, it was like our flight path was like going straight, and then you could see off to our right, like the rain was just kind of following us on the side.
Yeah, it was coming in from the south because we're flying east, and then it was coming. There was this moderate precipitation kind of just south of us, and we were kind of like on the like fringe of it, so like we're getting like light drizzle at times, but it was never like, there was never any problem with visibility or anything like that.
No. So going back to like, you were talking about fixed wing, right? You were saying that your uncle only flies in VFR, so he's going airport to airport. This is why I'm so happy we have a helicopter. No shade to airplane pilots, but this is what happened. We were flying, and it was kind of raining, and I was busting to take a piss. Like, I was in physical pain, and I was like, I don't know what we're going to do. And he said, well, we can't divert to an airport, because if I land shut down, you go pee, we're going to get stuck because the weather was coming in.
Well, I'm not saying we're going to get stuck, but it was one of those things where it's like, if you land here, and then it's like, well, if we're landing in an airport, we might as well get fuel, and then you're going to go into the FBO, and then, you know... It's like a
2-minute piss break turns into like a 10 to 15 minute saga.
Or even 20 or 30 minute thing, right?
And that like 20, even like 15 minutes is enough for the weather to move in and fuck you.
We were right on the edge of that system that was slowly moving north.
Right.
But like, as long as we get past it, it would close off behind us.
Right.
And so we set up a destination to refuel, sort of maybe like, I don't know, 80% through the full trip.
Yeah.
So if we could get to there, then we were in the clear and there was no issue with the rain.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, well, I'll hold my pee just because I don't want to get stuck somewhere.
And we're flying over the beautiful Finger Lakes at this point.
It was gorgeous. And then like suddenly I was like, I cannot hold it. This is an emergency at this point. I am going to pee in my pants.
It's not an emergency.
No, it was an emergency for my bladder because I was like in pain. So I had these like portable urinals. You guys probably heard me talk about these before. I talked about them from Cold Island because I brought them and used one in the tent, but I've never had to use one after that. So I had this like.
To go pee.
Do we need to take a break?
I mean, we don't even have to take a break. I can take this wireless go and just continue the conversation as I'm going to the bathroom.
Yeah, except we're gonna hear your pee.
So?
I kind of feel like I'm gonna barf a little bit. Like I feel a little bit nauseous. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Anyway, let me finish my story. Okay. So I had the pee real bad. So I have these portable urinals. It's like a plastic cup that goes around your downstairs, which is attached to a bag. And so you pee in it.
And the bag has like some sort of gel in it?
There's something in it that turns your pee to gel.
Okay.
So it's like, it can't pour out. I'm getting like nauseous talking about this.
Why?
I don't know.
It's just pee.
So anyway, he's like, all right.
Everybody pees.
He's like, radios, and he's like, we just got to.
No, so I told you, I was like, well, get your attachment out and just pee right here on the seat.
But like the way that it works, like I can't sit and pee with it because...
This is like a true male perspective on things. It's like, well, why can't you just pee sitting there? I could pee right now if I wanted to and not spill anything.
Except for with the angle of the seat, if I was to put that there and pee, I would guarantee spill it all over the seat.
New leather seats, no.
Yeah, it would be a mess. And so I wasn't willing to do that. So we set it down on this like sandbar next to water. No, it wasn't even a sandbar.
It was it was like, what's it called? The delta of one of the lakes.
Yeah? I don't know.
It's like a wetland at the opening of a lake.
Yeah,
anyway.
So he was like, okay, well, we'll swing around here. Radio's in. He's like, I just need to set her down for like a second. So we sat down for a second.
Right, because we're on something called flight following. So we're talking to air traffic control who are just following us along, giving us weather updates, traffic advisories. And then you always have somebody who's able to like you're able to talk to at any given moment if you have an issue. So we're with flight following. I can't just like land and not tell them because I disappear off their radar and they'd be like, holy shit, where's 300 Whiskey Zulu? And if I was outside, we'd be in a valley, so they probably wouldn't be able to talk to us via radio. Then they send search and rescue out.
Yeah, so just for a pee break? Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, we've got to set it down for a second. We'll be back with you in, say, 5 minutes. And like, okay.
Yeah. So we set it down in this, like, marshy kind of wetland.
Yeah, and it's kind of so the question then becomes, is that allowed? And it's a bit of a gray area at this point because I know that like in Canada, people don't own the water. Mm-hmm. Technically, New York State owns the water. So, and then there's a buffer between bodies of water and then people's actual land. So this was technically in a wetland area that was probably part of the water, but it was solid enough ground we could land on it.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, I kind of took the approach of if a tree falls in the forest, doesn't make a sound. If a helicopter lands in the forest and nobody sees it,
did it really land?
Is it really illegal? Anyway, now we're telling everybody about it, but
yeah. Okay, so anyway, so we set it down. He keeps it running because we were like, in and out, let's go quick.
So throttle down to idle. Blades are still spinning. Becky pops out.
Drop fucking trow down to my knees, grabs a urinal. I put my raincoat around me because there was like a house way in the distance. I was like, if anyone got binoculars, they're getting a full moon today. So I put my raincoat down around me.
You had your raincoat like you were like a pervert with like a trench coat.
Yeah, with like basically no pants on.
Like an exhibitionist.
I could have turned around and flashed everybody in my downstairs.
You were naked under your trench coat,
yeah.
You perv.
So my pants were down around my knees. I didn't want to drop them too far. Took the urinal out of the bag.
Door of the helicopter's still open.
Door of the helicopter's open.
Blade still spinning.
Chris is filming me like the fucking asshole. Popped the urinal in, got the coat around, and I can't piss. I'm busting to pee, like in pain, and I had the worst stage fright of my life.
Why? There's nobody there.
There's nobody there.
You're in the middle of nowhere.
I'm not used to standing and peeing. Like it's awkward.
You're not used to like.
I had to squat a little bit.
Having a helicopter wait for you, Blade still
and somebody
spinning.
watching me and filming me while I'm peeing.
I mean, you didn't even need to use the urinal. You could just squat down. And...
No, I couldn't have because it says the guy who has a fucking penis. If a woman has... Try having a vagina. You have to drop your...
I tried. I tucked it in before.
No, it's not the same thing. You're saying just squat. If you're a woman and you have to squat, you have to bring all your pants down to your ankles. You have to squat.
All that already? You did that already?
No, I didn't. You don't understand.
Oh, you just brought them to your knees.
I brought them to my knees and just put my urinal in between, and I just had a light squat, bend in the knees.
Let's go to the crux of the issue here.
No.
You're afraid to go put your pants in your knees because you're afraid a tick's going to crawl on your panties.
Yes, but you don't understand. If I was going to squat and pee, I have to drop all my pants to my ankles, hold them all back, squat completely down, and pee downhill.
You know what you need? You need one of them...
Portable urinals.
You need one of them...
cardboard wieners. Cardboard penises.
Portable Johns.
Portable John with female attachment.
That's the urinal that you have, right? Okay.
No, a portable John with female attachment is basically a plastic cup with a penis.
Portable Dicky Bird.
Yeah. Okay, so that's not what I had. I didn't want to squat because I would literally have to like dig a trench so the pee wouldn't pool around my legs, and I'd have to hold my. You don't understand.
You pee on my skids.
Having a vagina.
Vagina. I'm gonna call it that from now on.
That's my vagina's name is Vagina. Having a vagina is difficult. So anyway.
I mean, technically it's a vulva, but okay.
Whatever. Isn't it technically a urethra? Having a woman's urethra?
A female urethral attachment?
Yes. Moving on. People who hate toilet talk are like, this podcast sucks. 0 stars. Idiots. So I'm there. I have to have a slight bend in my knees, actually make a pee. He starts making pee sounds. Okay, that's good. Yeah, it's working. Keep going.
You couldn't, you did the actual...
It was like, and you were like, oh, filming me.
The hand goes up.
I was like, oh my God. So finally I start peeing. And I couldn't hear if I was still peeing or not. And there's wind blowing, so I had looked to see if I was still peeing.
You couldn't tell if you were peeing.
And I was. I felt like I wasn't.
I could tell if I'm peeing. I never thought about it.
Yeah. Well, next time,
I always can
run
see
the
it.
helicopter.
I always can see it and I always can hear it.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't see it or hear it. So anyway, thankfully I have my little contraption in a little baggie.
Popping the door open because I had like seeing you pee. I was like, oh, maybe I have to pee a little bit. I was like, it's not there yet. So I was thinking about like just staying. I have to maintain control of the helicopter because the blades are still spinning.
Yeah, you just needed a cup. You could have unzipped your pants, popped your ween out, and I could have put a cup.
I could have.
Okay, we're gonna move on from
But I was thinking like if I open my door, I could just do this.
I don't think so.
Just, like,
I don't think you have as good control. You try that sometimes, and it's.
I've never done it in the helicopter, but I'm going to now. Challenge accepted.
Just focus
with the
on flying.
blade spinning.
No, bad idea. I really feel nauseous.
Okay. Because we're talking about this topic?
I don't know. So anyway, I have my like camper's toilet
It's the gel in the bag
paper
that kinda
and
made you feel funny,
yeah,
isn't it?
I just don't feel very good right now anyway. But so anyway, I peed, gel bag, put it in my dog poop bag, which I got for barf bags. Brilliant.
Yeah.
And
It was a good idea. That was a great idea.
it was a great idea. And then we lifted off and continued, and I felt fantastic.
Like $1,000,000.
I did. I was like, wow.
And it was smooth as glass the rest of the way.
It was beautiful.
It was
And-
bumpy when we first took off from Buffalo.
Yeah.
And you were like, oh my God, what did I get myself into? But it smoothed out.
Yeah.
It wasn't the worst turbulence we've ever been in.
God no. And it was like overcast and like slightly drizzly.
Light chop, we'll call it.
Light chop, yeah. It was slightly drizzly, so everything looked really lush.
Yeah, it was nice.
Anyway, so we flew, we landed for
Ceiling
fuel.
8,500 feet.
Yeah.
Great.
We were flying at like 3,000, 4,000 feet.
Yeah, which is very high for us.
That's high for us. We usually fly like 1,000, 2,000, 500
Surface.
service. Anyway, so we land at get fuel, we take off, and then we fly to this dude's house because that's the whole point of the story. It wasn't about my pee and my urinal and how to pee as a woman,
Yeah.
which I had to look up on the internet before Cold Island, by the way.
How to pee as a
how
woman.
to pee in the woods. How does a woman pee in the woods? And they're like, step 1, take out your toilet shovel and shovel down.
Toilet shovel?
Yes. So
It's like for dudes, like step 1, take your penis out.
Yeah, but when you camp in the woods,
Step 2,
you have a
urinate.
when you
Step
camp
3, profit.
profit.
I know, that's like the...
When you camp in the woods, you bring a toilet shovel and you dig a hole and shit in it and then you bury it. When you pee in the woods, as a woman, you take your shovel and you either dig a hole to pee in or you make sure that you're on a slope and you're peeing down slope.
Interesting.
Because you pee outwards, we pee downwards, so we had to pee down a hill.
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice when I peed, when we were in Arizona and we did that jet ski trip and I said I had to go pee and I went
Yeah,
on
you
the
went on the hill.
back of the hill?
Yeah.
That's why. I had to Google it. Anyway, so we fly in here and we land.
21 minutes of this podcast
Is about
pee talk.
peeing. Yeah, we haven't even got to the actual fucking story. So we land at this dude's house. We
It was we kind of got like a high and low reconnaissance of the area. We found the Airbnb, which is great.
Yeah.
And of course the field was like bigger than anything we've ever seen before for off airports. It would have been so good.
yeah,
It was like
with a helicopter outside the A-frame, get a cool shot.
Like
Anyway,
it was way bigger than even our backyard.
yeah, so we landed in this dude's backyard. We shut her down. Dude came up and he was like, cool, like super nice.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, you got a lot of stuff there, so why don't you, I'll go grab my car, put all your stuff in my car, and we'll bring it up to the Airbnb.
Yeah, because I was like, we were just going to call a taxi and get a taxi to bring us up. But it was like literally
was like 2
a
minutes.
2-minute drive
Yeah.
because it was their neighbors basically
Yeah.
on big plots of land. So he's like, oh, you got a lot of stuff. It's only up the street, but it's uphill and you're going to be hauling a lot of stuff. So like, well, we're going to call a taxi. Oh, don't be silly. Don't call a taxi. Here, I'll drive you. I was like, oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
And then so he basically we just loaded all our stuff in the back of his SUV.
Yeah.
And he drove us up and just put it in
the cabin.
In the cabin. It was great.
But then you asked him if he wanted to go for a flight.
Oh yeah, and he was because he's talking. And I was like, oh, we totally owe you a helicopter ride now. And he's like, well, I was telling my buddies that a helicopter is gonna be landing in the yard. And I thought how cool it would be to like land at the country club that I go to, like to play golf at, and like just have a beer and then just like fly out.
Yeah.
I was like, you want to make that? I was like, you want to make that happen? And he's like, yeah. So he was like, okay. He's like, I was like, all right. Well, I was like, what do you want to do? He's like, oh, I don't know. I was like, all right, why don't we just drop our stuff off and go back
do
down
it now.
and do it right now?
Yeah.
He's like,
they were all vaccinated. We were vaccinated. So
yeah, it worked out. Yeah.
It worked out well.
So we drive back to his place again, like literally 2 minutes down the street, and we pile in. He shows me on the aerial photos like where the golf course was, like where the proposed landing site was. Again, it was like a little soccer field. So it was like even bigger than.
Yeah, it was great. Great spot.
Yeah, even bigger than. We filmed it.
Yeah, whatever. Sometimes you don't need to film everything.
No, we don't. Yeah.
Something that like we need to do more of, like, is sometimes we just need to experience things and we don't have to document.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
That's true. Yeah. But anyway, we just landed in this little area, and he hopped out, went down, had a beer with his buddies. We kind of just like walked around, looked at the grounds, and checked the golf course out. And he came out when he was done his one beer, and then we flew back to his house.
Yeah.
It was like a 5-minute flight each way.
Yeah, we kind of just went up around the hill a little bit. And
Oh yeah, we get to kind of do some bridge surfing.
yeah, it was cool. And then we landed, and they were stoked. And then he was like, "Well, I don't know how you're going to get around. So here, take my truck for the weekend. So he gave us his truck for the weekend.
He's like, yeah, I got a spare truck here you can use. I'm not using it. He's like, it's just a beater. I use it for work.
He's like, it's shit haul.
It's like a 2002 Pathfinder. It's like, it's really disgusting inside, but if you want it, you can take it.
Yeah.
And we're like,
yes.
I was like, yeah, that solves the problem. I was having to figure out how we're getting back to your house with all our stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't want to call him up and be like,
yeah,
hey, can you drive us back?
Not like we could have anyway, because there's no cell phone reception.
Correct. There's no cell phone reception.
Which brings us back to the beginning, because I was like, when he wanted to fly to this guy's house and take a cab, I was like, how are we going to get a cab back? Because like the Airbnb says it's off grid. I don't think there's cell reception. You're like, I checked the map. There's 5G. There's no 5G.
The map is wrong.
Your face is wrong.
The map is
anyway,
wrong.
So it couldn't have worked out more perfectly. We're not picky, like whatever.
No, not at
we got wheels to bring us up to the cabin.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Perfect. We're not complaining.
Yeah, check engine lights on. I was like, whatever.
Yeah, I got to pet a dog, so that was great, Georgie. Anyway, so that's kind of our story, how we got here. It was hilarious. And so last night, this podcast is now 45 minutes. I'll probably cut out some of my peeing, but they were also cool with whatever length. They said like shorter is good if it's sustainable, whatever works for us. So
there we go.
Anyway, so last night we came up and we're staying here for 2 nights. So we decided to do A-frame one night because we wanted to get the experience and how it felt. The A-frame doesn't have power or heat. It has just cots. And I never slept on a cot before. Spoiler alert, not fun. But I wanted to experience that because as we move forward with our cabin build and our planning, we want to figure out how we're going to be sleeping and
what works, what doesn't work.
What works and what doesn't work, and do cots work? Is that a good solution? Or do we really need to figure out how we can power this place and get heat, and so we can actually put real furniture in there so it doesn't like get rotty and full of bugs.
Yeah, keep it climate controlled.
Exactly. So anyway, so we slept there the last night. It's been pissing since we landed, came up to the cabin, and it started raining, which was perfect timing. But so we stayed in the A-frame last night.
It's been raining for almost 24 hours.
Yeah, I think it's stopped
now. Starting to clear up now.
Yeah. So what was it like sleeping in the A-frame, Chris?
Oh my God. So first of all, the cots had basically one Sherpa blanket.
Yeah. Also, this is no shade to the Airbnb host. Like, this is how these cabins are, like, they have different levels of cabins. Like, ones, they can be on-grid, off-grid, and this was, like, an off-grid, basically, like, glorified tent.
Like it's glamping. An alternative to a tent. It's like glamping, exactly.
Yeah, and we knew this going in. Like, it's shown in the pictures. So I actually brought my little air pad that I brought on Cold Island because I figured it probably wouldn't be the most comfortable.
It's like a mini air mat.
Mini air mattress, like you'd use for backpacking.
I, however, did not because I was like, whatever, it's fine. And so they had a pillow there, though. And so in this little blanket, but Becky got us these little camp ponchos.
Oh my God, they're amazing.
They're basically like a hooded cape.
They're like a quilted blanket, but like thin with a hood and a snap for a cape. Yeah.
Yeah, so I had that, had my puffy coat, and then had a hoodie, and then that was it.
Yeah. So when we went in there last night, it was really cozy because we had this like little lamp and it was warm in there. Like it wasn't freezing, but I guess like with the temperature dropping overnight and like obviously when you sleep, I think your body temperature drops. I always find I'm colder when I'm sleeping.
Yeah, I get really sensitive to cold when I'm sleeping too.
Yeah, me too.
It's just normal.
Yeah. So while the vibe and it was like super cozy, we just didn't have enough blankets. I think if we had our sleeping bags that we brought on Cold Island, we would have been perfect.
Definitely.
Just like in a little mummy cocoon. Because like the camp wraps were great because they kind of acted like a quilted blanket, but it just wasn't enough. And
those little Sherpa blankets were warm.
They were cozy,
but like they were like the 2 widths of me. So I like folded it over into like and made myself a little taco. But I had to be like this. And if I moved it all, like my knees would pop out and then they'd get all like sideways. And so I found like I was waking up every couple hours having to resituate my blankets because I was like freezing. Yeah,
that's what I found too. I was kind of hoping like that, like last time we did a tent sleepover, I was waking up every like hour.
A tent sleepover.
Because we did. We slept in the backyard. Mm-hmm. I was waking up every hour because I was hearing stuff in the woods and we were in a tent. I felt really like vulnerable to predators. But last night we were inside.
Predators in your backyard.
Yeah. Woodchuck.
Woodchuck.
Deer.
The woodchuck's more
killer in the night. You don't know. Anyway, so I felt protected in the little cocoon. It was pouring, but you couldn't really hear the rain because of the pitch of the roof.
Yeah, it's a very steep pitch.
And it was like really quiet. Like you couldn't hear anything. But so I was like, oh, this is probably going to be good.
It was relaxing.
It was relaxing.
The soundscapes were relaxing.
Yeah, and the way like this glowed just in the thing. But the bed situation was uncomfortable. So I was waking up because my bed wasn't comfortable and I was cold. And I think it would have been perfect. I think the experience would have been completely different had we had our sleeping bags. So I kind of regret not bringing them. But if we come back up here, definitely be, and if we had to sleep out there again.
Yeah, sleeping bags would be key.
Yeah. So anyway.
At like 6:30 in the morning.
Oh, God.
We woke up and it was like, I can't take this anymore. We gotta go back to the main cabin.
Well, I knew you were cold because you were completely covered head to toe. And you were shifting. And yeah, I took a video, yeah. And you're shifting around, which you normally don't do. You're usually either dead to the world or fighting in your sleep. So, and you were shifting and moving, and I was like, he's not comfortable. I could tell.
But not fighting.
You weren't fighting, no.
Okay, all right.
That's how I know you're in a real deep sleep, when you're fighting. So I was cold. I remember actually, like, we went to bed at like 9:30, and I woke up, and I was like, oh, I hope it's like halfway through the night, because I'm really cold, and I want to go to the cabin, but he's asleep. And I looked, it was 10:30
p.m.
Like, fuck.
Like 1 hour after we went to bed.
Yeah, I was like, shit. Anyway, yeah, it was like 5 o'clock, and I turned over, and I was like, one more hour till the sun's up, we'll film it, just to have the full experience, to see what it's like to wake up and hear light. And then anyway, 6 o'clock came, and I was like, I need to get the fuck out of here. And you were stirring, so I was like, let's go. So we packed everything up, and we came over here and got in the bed, because there's a real bed in here. This one is climate controlled, and so there's a full bed with big fluffy blanket and pillows, and we climbed in there, and we went to sleep till like 9:30.
It was very cozy.
There's nothing better after you have a shitty ass sleep than coming back and having a nap.
Yeah, definitely.
We sat on the couch this morning, and you said, I feel like after sleeping over to somebody's house.
Yeah, like when I was a kid, and you go on like these like tent sleepover where you like don't really sleep. You're up all night.
You're up till like 4 o'clock in the morning watching Sex with Sue on the TV.
I did not watch that. We were actually sucking air into our buttholes and Forever on Demand.
Boys versus girls. That's what you guys did. That's incredible.
I can still do that. It's my hidden talent.
Yeah, we used to like just hang out and watch movies, and then Sex with Sue would come on at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and we'd watch her. And then it would be like, we'd sleep for an hour and then be like, dead.
But you're tired, you had an uncomfortable night's sleep, and your whole body aches. Yeah, that's how I felt this morning.
Yeah, me too. But you know what? It is really cool. I'm learning a lot about what a cabin needs. Like hooks, like that's such a weird, obscure thing, but like there's no hooks in this place.
Yeah, and plenty of hooks. It's like
plenty of
for all
hooks,
your coats, your hoodies, your towels for in the bath. Like hooks are something you take for granted.
Yeah, and especially in a small
Until
space.
missing.
I feel like if you don't have cabinetry or a closet, like you need hooks for sure. So I think that's something like we're definitely taking note of. They have a really interesting toilet here that I've never seen, because I've been doing research for the last like year since we've been looking for a cabin lamp for a year, by the way. Pretty much since the pandemic hit, we've been looking for land.
Even before that.
But
when the pandemic hit, we're like, okay, we need to make this happen now, because like we don't know how long stuff's gonna be shut down for.
Yeah.
We don't know how long we're not gonna be able to travel. So
we wanted to make our own vacation destination.
Right.
Yeah. But we'll tell you guys way more details about like the cabin and the stories that went along with that later, because that's like a longer term project. We're trying to finish our home reno, and then maybe build this A-frame cabin, and then probably finish off the home reno and just kind of dabble in it. But when it comes time to like, because we haven't closed on the land yet. Oh no. Battery. Anyway, so what was I saying? Oh yeah, so there's like a really interesting toilet in here, because I've been doing some research for the last year. Was that what we're talking about? We're talking about the cabin. Oh yeah, so we'll share some more information on the cabin when like the time comes after we've closed, because we've been in the process of trying to close on this property for like
a while.
So once we get closer to that, we'll talk more about it on the podcast, and then of course you'll see the whole series on YouTube of us building it. But so I've been researching toilets and looking at like composting toilets, and like looking at what people are doing like for van life and stuff. And it gets complicated when you're off the grid, because like how do you do septic, or is there other options? And if you don't have power, like how does that all work? And so in here they have this like marine toilet. It's like a dry flush toilet. So you basically shit in a tinfoil sack, and when you flush, it like twists it up and puts it in its own thing, and then puts a new tinfoil sack in there. And so you just pee, and it kind of keeps like all your things.
It's like a tinfoil butthole.
Yeah, it's like a tinfoil butthole. Yeah. And
like, whoa.
It's crazy. I've never seen anything like that. And so I had 1 bar reception for a second, so I Googled it, and it was like, wow, like you have 17 flushes, and it keeps all your duty and stuff like separated. And it don't smell. And then when you change them, like you just take the top off and like turn the thing, and then there's another bag that goes outside, and then you just like bag it up and tie it off, and like you don't
throw it away.
And throw it away. You don't see it, you don't smell it. And apparently landfills, like you're allowed to put poopy in the landfill, because kids' diapers and adult diapers, what else are you supposed to do with them? So they're allowed to go in the landfill. So this is okay to go into the landfill.
There you go.
So I was like, this is a perfect solution. As long as we have power, we can have a toilet like that. I don't know how they have the rest of the water stuff hooked up here. I don't know if they have a gray water tank or something, but
Yeah, we'll figure all that out.
But anyway, this is what I'm talking about. Like things that you really, because I was like, oh, we'll do a compost toilet. That would be the best thing. How does that work in the wintertime when it's freezing? And so this is kind of like, oh, wait, this is better. So this is kind of what we're talking about when we're going back to like at the beginning of this episode, when we were talking about like staying and seeing places physically and being able to touch stuff. Like, had we not used this toilet and seen it, I don't know if we would have considered that as an option. Mm-hmm. So over the next few months, as we're dabbling back into travel, hopefully we can stay in a couple of different places that are similar to this and continue to get ideas, because we got so many ideas just from being here for like 24 hours.
Yep.
So I'm excited to do more stuff.
Yeah, it's been a fun trip, all things considered.
Yeah.
We made the most of it.
We did smoke the cabin out this morning trying to light a fire in the fireplace.
Yeah, I don't know. Something about it got really smoky. I don't know if there was enough airflow.
Yeah, I don't know. There's no instructions with this Airbnb.
Yeah.
That's it.
So we just closed the door and like let it do its thing and extinguished it.
Yeah. So it's kind of stinky.
All right, should we end it here?
Yeah, so thank you guys again for the feedback. And also we're going to, like I said, be starting that open mic segment. So if you want to send us, like, keep it like super quick, like tell us your name or where you're from, or don't, and just say, hello, or tell us something funny, a funny story, or just tell us something about yourself, or just say hi.
Whatever you want to do, open mic.
Open mic, and then we might play it on the podcast in our new segment. So
all right.
Thank you for the feedback. Thanks for listening. And how do we end the podcast?
I don't know. See you guys next one.
See ya.
See ya.